Our gospel reading today comes from John chapter 10. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So Jesus again said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved, and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Grace, mercy, and peace be to you from God our Father and the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. In our gospel reading from John chapter 10 today, Jesus offers what might seem like a confusing blend of ideas. In the reading we just heard, Jesus says he's the door, and just one verse later he'll say he's also the shepherd. He talks about thieves and robbers, and there's a gatekeeper in there somehow, and he talks about recognizing the voice of the shepherd. As we read it, this is something of a confusing blend of ideas, which I hate to bring it up, but it's kind of like life today. When we come to the news today, we get a confusing blend of ideas. Is COVID-19 more or less dangerous than the flu? Are masks helpful or not? With so many news outlets vying for coverage on these questions in particular, it can be kind of confusing. And whatever your political opinion, I think we can all agree that too few news outlets are taking the time to report both accurately and communicate clearly on these issues. Too many do one or the other, or unfortunately neither. And probably too many in our society are irresponsible in their collection of the news too. When they go to the news, they don't discern for bias and check other sources. With so many voices calling for your attention, claiming to offer true and unbiased and accurate reporting, which news outlets do you depend on? Where do you go for the answers you need? Where do you go for the truth? I know that this topic is divisive, and it might even have you riled up as I say any of the things that I've just said. But before I lose you to these negative emotions that the current events of our world are causing in you, let me ask what might be a challenging question. How many who are watching today got riled up or emotionally invested or passionate about our gospel reading? Did you get worried as Jesus was speaking? Did you get invested while Jesus was speaking in the same way that you get upset when you hear the news say something which doesn't jive with your expectations, with your knowledge of the situation. And if we're passionate about the truthfulness of the news and its impact on the people of our world, shouldn't we then be similarly passionate about the message of the church, the truthfulness of its message? Many people at the beginning of the crisis amped up their news consumption. They really sought out news, sought out the truth, sought out the facts and the statistics, all of the information they needed to understand what was going on, to keep themselves and their friends and their families safe. But if you look at recent statistics, you see that news consumption has dropped off a cliff. You'll see that what they're calling now news fatigue is setting in. People think they know whether COVID-19 is more dangerous than the flu. They know whether masks are helpful or not. Fewer and fewer are looking at the countless new reports that come out. And because people think they know, because they have answers, they've in many ways shut down. Convinced that they won't find useful information by checking the news, maybe because it's biased, maybe because there's nothing new under the sun. But I bring all of this up because this situation in our culture today bears a striking resemblance to what Jesus is talking about as he brings up this idea of the good shepherd, as he brings up the idea of the door and the sheepfold and the thieves and the robbers and the gatekeeper. Jesus says, I am the door. I am the good shepherd, the place to find the truth. My sheep know my voice. They recognize it when I'm speaking. And they do not follow the voice of a stranger. In this teaching, Jesus is highlighting the fact that his voice is not only a voice trying to get your attention. It's not the only one, but rather there are countless other voices which are seeking your attention, telling you they have the truth, offering it to you in so many different ways. These voices are, you might say, the devil's fake news about life, fake news about truth, about salvation, and again, I probably have you riled up, I know. But why are you riled up now? As I bring up fake news, as I bring up our world, and not as Jesus is speaking about the danger of the devil, the danger of the other fake news, the more serious fake news which can not only harm your earthly life, but your soul, can destroy your soul. The devil would like nothing more than for us to pay attention to this fake news. For if we do follow this fake news, these other voices that Jesus says are out there, if we're fooled by them, then we will be trying to enter the sheepfold another way. We'll be following other things that cannot offer life or salvation or hope. And because there is no other way than the good shepherd, the door, we will really be following the devil, the world, our own flesh. Honestly, we'll be following anything else, whether good, bad, or ugly. And we will think we are following something good. We will think we are following that shepherd, chasing after life, while really running towards our own destruction. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, again, when Jesus says these words in John 10, do we hear him and say, yeah, sure, okay, Jesus, you're the door, you're the shepherd, it's good to know? Or do we hear him speaking and say, whoa, Jesus is saying something important. There are many other voices trying to get my attention. I am distracted. And so I need to listen closely to what he's saying right now. In fact, I need to listen to what he's saying all the time. And if I'm going to sort the good news from the bad news, not just the fake news, then I need to hear and be able to recognize his voice. Once I've recognized it, when I hear it, I will follow wherever it leads. Well, whether you get riled up about fake news or not, today, let's talk about that good news. Let's talk about the voice of that shepherd that Jesus speaks about in our story today. Let's talk about what it means to recognize him in order that we might follow him. To start out, I'd like to talk about that recognizing aspect, because recognizing means knowing him. Recognizing requires knowing him. When we're talking about recognizing anyone, really, whether we're talking about recognizing their voice or their appearance, the key to being able to recognize them is to know them well. After all, it's easier to pick out my wife in a crowd than probably anybody else. And that's not because she looks funny. No, it's because I know her so well. And this is probably true for you. The people you know, you can pick out better. Parents with twins who are identical can tell the twins apart, right? Because they know them so well. But the people who don't know those twins, they have a problem with that, right? And this is true in everything. Music, movies, brands. Recognizing is about knowing. So the first thing we can do, if we want to be better at recognizing the shepherd's voice, is to take time to listen to him. Not just to take time to listen to him, but to spend time with him by reading the scriptures, praying, worshiping. Our first goal, just at the very start, has to be, if we want to recognize him, to know him. But it's important that we realize the kind of knowing we're talking about. It's not like the knowing that's involved in 1 + 1 = 2. Knowing Jesus is a deeper kind of knowing. And it's also a more flawed kind of knowing than the kind of knowing we understand in 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1, after all, is a fact. It will neither surprise you nor challenge you, and once you know it, you know it. And it doesn't change. 1 + 1 will equal 2 today and tomorrow, and it always has, right? And I'm sure professional mathematicians might disagree with me when I say this, but 1 + 1 is a simple thing to say. There's not a whole lot of depth to it. But when we're talking about knowing Jesus, things are different. For no matter how many times I hear his voice, even if it's the same words as what I heard last time, he has never stopped surprising me and challenging me. It's not that he is changing. Let's be clear there. Just like 1 + 1, Jesus doesn't change. And our second reading, our James reading, made that clear. Every gift, every good gift, and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Rather, it's not that he is changing, it's that our knowing is changing. We know him better the more we approach his word, the more time we spend with him. We are learning more about him, and we, if anything, are the ones being changed as we strive to follow him more closely. See, beyond that, it's not just that knowing Jesus is different because there's a depth to it. But knowing Jesus is different because there's no end to it. There's no end to knowing Jesus, no graduation in knowing Jesus. You can't say that there's some checklist with which once you've figured it all out, you've got him down. Instead, knowing Jesus is like knowing any other person. And I mean this a number of ways. First, I know my wife and my son at this point probably better than anybody else in the world. I like to think that I have a good sense of how they'll respond if I do anything or say anything. But I would be lying to you if I said that they don't surprise me, and I mean that frequently. They surprise me all the time. Does that mean that I don't know them or can't know them? Well, of course not. And we know this, right? When we're talking about knowing someone in a relationship, we expect that knowing to be flawed, that I don't know every last detail about my wife. But that knowing is deep. That knowing is ever changing and ever growing. But we also would say that knowing requires that I continue to connect with them. It requires that I connect them, and the more often I connect with them, the better. Because they will grow and I will grow. I'll celebrate with them, mourn with them, struggle with them, and even triumph with them. I mean, imagine me telling my wife that I only needed to see her for an hour each week because any more would be unnecessary, because I already know her. I don't think it'd go over very well. In the same way, my knowing Jesus does not have some stopping point where I will say, I've finally figured this Jesus guy out. I can stop reading Scripture, stop praying, stop coming to worship. Of course not. There's no point at which I say I've had too much of my wife. There's no point at which I say I've had too much relationship with Jesus. Rather, we say, in his presence, there is fullness of joy. I treat my relationship with Jesus as I treat my relationship with my wife and son, a dynamic, growing, ever-changing reality where our walking together is honestly more important than what we do on any given day. We all ought to be delighted in and seek out Jesus' presence, regardless of how short or long a time we have to spend with him. This is the kind of relational knowing which allows us to recognize him, to hear his voice and say, that is Jesus, and thereby to follow him as well. When we follow the shepherd in this way and seek after him, it's then that we're able to recognize his voice and tell when he is the one speaking and not some other person, some thief, some robber who's come in to kill and destroy. Now, all of that said, I do imagine that when I said I don't grow sick of my wife, some of you said, well, the quarantine has been wearing on me. And you think of those that you have been stuck with, and whether they're your spouses or your kids. And no matter how much you love them, you say that isolation can do bad things to a relationship. But the good news in the midst of all of this is that though our love for Jesus may be flawed, our love in general for our wife and our kids and everyone we meet may be flawed, Jesus demonstrates by his life, death, and resurrection that his love is not flawed at all. His love is full and abundant where ours stumbles and is weak. He does not tire of our thick-headedness, weary of teaching us the same old lessons remotely from heaven. He's patient with us, never failing to forgive those persistent flaws and nervous tics and whatever else might be driving him insane. No. While we may fail to love Jesus fully, and do fail to love him fully, it is his unfailing and unflagging love which led him to the cross, led him to suffer and die for us while we were yet sinners, to call us his own and continue to come to us and speak his voice to us through the scriptures, through our pastors, through our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. It's his voice which not only saves, but builds up and leads us to be the people that he has called us to be in new and more merciful ways every single day of our lives. So, may the peace of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in that shepherd, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.